Welcome to the Vordel SharePoint Gateway demo. In this demo, we'll show you how to use the gateway to enable claim-based access control to SharePoint. In a claim-based authentication model, the SharePoint server grants access based on the claim issued by a trusted identity provider. The claims can include user identities such as Windows usernames, email addresses, or third-party single sign-on ID. The claim can also include roles and attributes that SharePoint can use to determine access level. The authentication of the user's identity is delegated to the trusted identity provider. SharePoint relies on the claim asserted by the identity provider via an explicit trust relationship pre-configured using the WS Trust or WS Federation protocols. With a claim-based model, SharePoint server no longer needs to have knowledge of the user accounts. User policies in SharePoint can simply be role-based or attribute-based, greatly simplifying the administration overhead when compared to managing individual user accounts. In this demo, we'll show you how to configure the gateway as a trusted identity provider. Then we'll show you how to use email-only claim to access SharePoint. Next, we'll add a role-based claim. Finally, we'll show you how the policy works inside the gateway. With that, I'll hand it off to Josh Bregman to do the demo.
So what I've got here is a website that's set up to use the claims-based model. But what you'll see when you come in initially, though it says it's set up for claims-based authentication, there's actually no trusted identity providers defined. So what you have to do is you have to use the PowerShell, some of these commands, to go and create this trusted identity provider, which is basically the binding of the metadata between what we're going to run in the gateway and what SharePoint knows about. So I'm creating here a very basic trusted identity provider that has a single claim, and we can look at that. And basically what we're saying is only send me here an email address in the assertion. The other thing is we'll start by only issuing the email claim. We'll show what the role claim does in a second. So once this policy is deployed, we should now be able to go into SharePoint. We now need to go and configure that. My trusted identity provider is now there, so I'm going to go and configure it for this site. There's no way to see these details of the trusted identity provider in SharePoint. That's all through the PowerShell. But once we've created that in the PowerShell, be ready to try to log into my application using the gateway as the tip or the trusted identity provider. And you would go to the front page of SharePoint, and what you'll see is we get prompted to go to the cloud IDP. Now, I'm getting challenged to log in with the username and password, so I have some users created here. So I'm going to log in. Normally, this page would actually have a JavaScript and this would self-submit, so you wouldn't see these details, but I wanted to put the information here on the page. So what the profile, WS Federation Passive Requester profile actually is very similar to SAML Browser Post. We're generating a SAML assertion. The difference is it's actually wrapped up in a WS Trust envelope, which you can see here. It's an RSTR. And what I've done is I pulled an email address out and stuck it in an attribute, and then I've signed the assertion with that certificate I configured. And if this all works, then SharePoint should at least know who I am, and I get access. So that's pretty good. That's the basic sort of federation working with the gateway. But the sort of obvious problem with this scenario is I actually had to go create an explicit grant for me as a user, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of federation. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to modify the definition of the trusted identity provider to also look for a role claim, and then I'm going to configure the gateway to issue that role claim. So the way that I do that again is through PowerShell. I can go into my PowerShell again, and I've created a second map that basically says I'm going to use this roles claim. And then I'm going to go and create the same provider, except I'm going to call it adding that second map there. And we can see that we've got two claim types that are created here. So now that that's set up, I'm going to re-enable this trusted identity provider, and I'm going to save. So now the other thing I want to do is I want to go add in this role claim. So I'm just going to drag that into the policy and go and deploy. So that on the gateway side, we're not only issuing an email address, but we're issuing a role. I'm going to delete, and I'm going to add a new set of users. The way I'm going to do this is now, instead of binding by an email address, I'm going to create a grant by role. So I'm going to, again, it just lets me find whatever string I enter there. I'm going to say, oh, admins, I'll put in here. And I'm going to give admins full control. The other thing that I'm going to do while I'm here is I'm going to create a separate access for operators. So I'm going to add both of those, and I'll come back here. Now, this time I'm going to log in as Ed J. Ed J is an operator. Now he gets in, but notice, because he's got read-only access, he can't create any document. I'm now going to sign out over here. I'm going to log back in. Now notice this time, in the SAML assertion, I've got both my email address as well as this role called admin. I get access to the site, and because I have the administrator grant, then I can go and actually add documents. What I've done in this example is I've shown both that we can do the integration with the WS Federation just by passing names, but also by pulling in attributes and roles, which is more of a true federation style. The way that we did this in policy is actually remarkably simple. Here in this main policy, we're authenticating the user. We're pulling out the REST attributes. We create the WS Trust message. We wrap it in the RSTR. We put in the SAML assertion. There's a requirement that there's an audience restriction that matches the URL that you're requesting. That's a Microsoft thing. We're pulling the attributes from the user store and then adding the claims to the SAML assertion. Finally, signing the SAML assertion, doing a little magic here to URL encode it, and then ultimately rendering this HTML form. That's the demo. I hope everybody enjoyed it.
Josh, thanks for the demo. To review what we just saw in the demo, Josh first showed you how to set up the gateway as a trusted identity provider for claim-based authentication into SharePoint. Then we showed a use case using email-only claim, then an email plus role claim. At the end, we show you the policy in the gateway that made all the magic happen. To find out more about Vordel's SharePoint gateway and other solutions, please visit Vordel.com or contact one of our product experts. Thank you for viewing the demo.